Chapter 34. The Dark Color of His Skin. He was tall and athletic and was on the track and soccer teams. He was also on the school's debating team. His name was Ben Packard. Hi, I'm Mike Scott, and I just wanted to apologize for the way I was earlier this year. They were in the school cafeteria. Packard frowned. I offered to get you a Coke. How could I forget? You were pretty unfriendly. I was worse. I acted like a real jerk. Right on. I figured you for a racist, but I found out later you treat everyone the same, black and white, so I didn't feel discriminated against. He grinned, his teeth a shining white against the dark color of his skin. Mike said, "Let me get you a Coke, okay?" Packard smiled. "Sure, but make it a grapefruit juice." The short rainy days of February were all darkness and gloom, but not for Mike, for he felt good. The world around him had taken on a new reality, as if he hadn't ever seen things as they really were before. Colors seemed brighter and sharper. Small, everyday things like the bare, wet branches of maple trees along the seawall seemed important somehow, as if there was something there waiting to be discovered if only he looked hard enough. Silent and still, he watched a glistening black winter twig with its translucent drop of rain and thought of Sarah. Chapter 35. Forgotten by Everyone. Weeks went by. Sarah did not come. Chris drove Mike to St. Augustine's graveyard one evening with daffodils and a bottle filled with water. Mike filled the glass jar on Sarah's grave with water and flowers. March battered its way in with bitterly cold gales that downed many trees all over the lower mainland. Mike struggled to school against powerful headwinds. Dorfman, child killer, monster was still in his classroom. Mike pestered Sampson's office, trying to get an update on the investigation. The detective inspector was out. Came the unvarying reply. Though Norma asked him no further questions about Sarah, Mike could see that she was still worried about his mental health. Even Robbie had stopped asking about Sarah. It was as if Sarah no longer existed. She was gone and forgotten by everyone. Everyone except Mike. Chapter 36. Complete and utter silence. "What's with the red scarf?" asked Robbie one Wednesday afternoon as they trundled home. "It's Sarah's. You haven't mentioned her in a while." "Only because you don't really believe there is a Sarah. You and Norma, both of you think I made her up. Because I lost my legs, because I lost my family, because I lost my mind, you think I imagined it, like it's a movie. You're wrong. I believe you, Mike." "Oh yeah?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I believe you. I believe you because I know you haven't lost your mind. You're the same guy I've always known. We've been pals since we were kids, right? You always stuck up for me, man, especially in elementary school when the other kids were calling me Fatso and all those other names. I know you, Mike. Right now, ever since you met this girl, you're more like your old self, the way you used to be before the accident, not blaming and not mad at everyone. The other kids at school say you're easier to get along with. You know what I'm saying? I believe you're okay, and I believe Sarah's a real girl because she's the one who did it." "You really believe me?" "Yeah, I do. But what if I told you she died over 17 years ago? Would you still believe?" "Come again?" Robbie stopped the chair and walked around to the front to look his friend in the eye. "Sarah Francis was murdered back in 1982, Robbie." "You're kidding me!" Mike shook his head. "You're saying she really is a ghost?" He shook his head again. "She's just simply Sarah." "She's real to me. That's all I can say. Tell me about the murder part." "You won't say I'm crazy again?" "I promise, man. I swear. Cross my heart and hope to die, okay?" Robbie got back behind the chair and pushed. As they rolled along, Mike told him how he'd discovered the report of Sarah's murder in the Clarion, and how Dorfman was the murderer, and how Mike had handed the hairs over to the police, and how he'd gone to Sarah's grave. Robbie, for once, was astonished into complete and utter silence. On Saturday evening at Robbie's place, Mike showed his friend the Clarion report of Sarah's murder. Robbie asked more questions, getting more and more excited. "What a story," he said, "but I don't get it. How come the police haven't arrested Dorfman? He's the worst kind of slime." "Evidence, Robbie. They've got to have hard evidence to stand up in court. The police haven't told me, but I think everything depends on DNA. If there's a match from the hairs I gave them, the least it can do is give them the power to bring him in for questioning. Then they might get further evidence. Who knows? Maybe he'll confess." "Yeah, I'd make him confess. I'd have the light shining on his ugly face while I questioned relentlessly, cleverly. I'd have teams asking him the same questions over and over, all through the day and night, never allowing him to sleep. And when he nods off, waking him and starting in again with the questions, pounding away at him until he breaks down and gives a written confession, sobbing onto the paper." Mike grinned. You've seen too many of those old black and white detective movies, Robbie. They had watched it before, but they, once again, vegged out in front of Raiders of the Lost Ark on video and ate popcorn. Then they watched Indiana Jones again in The Last Crusade. When the movies were over, they were tired. Robbie said sleepily, "You know what, Mike? That story of yours, it would make a great movie." Chapter 37. A feeling she would come. He had a feeling she would come. He wheeled down to the seawall late one evening through a thickening mist in from the sea and sat, peering at the faint glow of lights from West End towers across the water and inhaling the pungent smell of seaweed exposed by a low tide. Though there was no wind, mist and dampness made him wish he'd dressed more warmly, a thick sweater instead of a thin jacket. The mist drifted about the seawall and the dark trees and the damp benches. The sound of a truck on Canby Bridge, muted by the mist and damp coastal air, faded away into silence. He was starting to shiver. He should go back. The silence was broken suddenly by the high, ringing sound of footsteps hurrying along the seawall, and then the mist slid and shifted like a door opening as she came running towards him, breathless and happy. His heart gave a lurch. "Sarah!" His voice suddenly hoarse, his body no longer cold. She kneeled beside the chair and flung her arms about him. "Oh, Michael!" Each time he saw her, she was a little different, a little older, a little taller, or so it seemed, and more lovely, more fresh and alive. They moved to a bench, and she sat, clasping his hands, and they stayed like this for several minutes, enjoying the silence and their closeness. "It is wonderful to see you, Michael. You are so strong and well. And you look wonderful, like a movie star, Sarah. Remember how you liked to play those stupid movie star games? You were such a sorehead." "No, I wasn't." "Yes, you were." They laughed. "You graduate soon, Michael. I want to be there to see it. Will you come to grad?" "I will try very hard to be there, Michael. It will be a graduation for me, too." He didn't understand. Her hands were warm. He said, "I decided on going back to rehab to get fitted with a pair of 10 legs." "Legs? And then you can walk?" "That's what they tell me." "It'll take a couple of months to learn, but once they get the legs for me." "I'm happy for you, Michael. This will be good for you, I know. What made you decide?" "A book Norma gave me. An English air ace named Douglas Bader lost both his legs, like me, but he was super determined to fly, and he did. He flew fighter planes with his artificial ones. He called them 10 legs. Your aunt is a smart woman." "Yes, I think you can do it, Michael." He smiled and shrugged his shoulders. "I can try. They're not really 10. Are they, these legs?" "No. Metal and plastic, I think, but I haven't seen them yet. I will need canes or crutches for a while until I get used to them." They talked. She stayed until it was very dark and the mist had caused all the lights from West End towers to disappear. He felt tired and sleepy, barely noticed her hand slip away. The first week was impossible. If the therapist hadn't continued to encourage him every time he lost his balance and fell, he would have quit by the end of it. Adjustments were made to the legs. The second week was also bad. He wanted to give up. The muscles in his thighs ached with weariness, and his stumps were irritated and sore. "We've got to build up the muscles," they said. "Exercise is the answer." He exercised at rehab, and he exercised at home. Further adjustments were made to the legs and to the socks and the cushioning. By the end of the third week, he was beginning to get the hang of it. He fell less often and could walk a short distance without the aid of canes. "The more you practice, the better you will become," they said. Practice, practice. He continued to use his wheelchair. It would be a long time yet before he would be ready to walk in public. Chapter 38. Charged with Murder. "It made the Vancouver Sun," said Robbie. "Look, it even made the Globe and Mail." He dropped the newspapers on Norma's kitchen table and pulled up a chair. Mike picked up the Sun. The front page showed a picture of masked federal agents with guns breaking into a Miami home to snatch the 6-year-old Cuban boy 5 months after he had been pulled from the sea. "Not that story, stupid," said Robbie. He turned the page. Mike stared at a picture of Dorfman, taken when he had hair, with the caption, "Albert Dorfman in 1982. The headline read, "Teacher charged with murder." "They got him," cried Mike. "They got Dorfman." There was also a picture of Dorfman's arrest, flanked by 3 plainclothes officers. He was being led, handcuffed, to a waiting police car. "Everything you told me was true," said Robbie. Mike stared at his friend. "You didn't believe me?" Robbie flushed with embarrassment. Of course I believe you. I just wasn't sure about the Dorfman part. He's slime, I knew that. But I wasn't so sure about a Carlton teacher as a killer. That's all. Teachers are the good guys, right? If it was a movie, it would be the janitor. And you call yourself a pal. Look, man, I'll never doubt anything you tell me ever again. I promise, okay? I swear, if you tell me Air Canada needs you to test a new supersonic jet, I'll believe you, honest. Sarah didn't come again that month. She didn't come again until June, until grad day. She came to see him graduate.